This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
Namaste, good evening, good morning, and a good day to everyone from Usha Venkatraman, the host of Storytellers Cafe on Bharat FM. Welcome to this special Joy of Giving episode on Bharat FM as we celebrate today on October 2nd, the Dan Utsav. Friends, as you know that Storytellers Cafe is the number one storytelling podcast show on Bharat FM, a Cincinnati-based radio station that was set up just at the start of pandemic. We are in our third season now, and I thank each and every one of you who come back sincerely to listen, learn, and enjoy from Storytellers Cafe. As you know, friends, I enjoy these episodes as much as I do. As I get down to sit down with fellow friends, storytellers, sometimes strangers, and share with you the wealth of knowledge and wisdom and life experiences that they have to share. As you know, Storytellers Cafe has made footprints in Australia, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, India, and Dubai, Qatar, England, Europe, as well as in the United States. And today we are traveling all the way down under to New Zealand. Now, today's guest definitely needs an introduction because I have been wanting to invite her for a very long time. She was somebody I looked up to when I was a very young girl. And finally, I have Neha Meher, our guest from New Zealand, online today, here in our studios. Like I said, friends, New Zealand is a country which is right down under. It is part of the Polynesian Islands. And I remember the words of Edmund Hillary, the New Zealander, who said, in some ways, I believe I epitomize the average New Zealander. This was after he rose right up to Mount Everest, climbed up, and he said, I have modest abilities. I combine these and a good deal of determination, and I rather like to succeed. I think this aptly fits the bill for our guest tonight. Now, New Zealand is an island country which is situated in the southwesternmost part of Polynesia. The country comprises of two main islands, the north and the south. Across New Zealand, you can find everything from untamed wilderness to rich culture, from towering mountains and mist-choked fjords. You can find serenity in the golden beaches curled around quiet bays. New Zealand is a great land of contrast and diversity. And as you know, friends, this is the Dan Utsav, the Joy of Giving Week, October 2nd, Mahatma Gandhi's birthday. And I thought it best to bring Neha Meher, who epitomizes the joy of giving. Now, why so? I'll tell you. We don't have to put Neha Meher on a pedestal. But to me, somebody who does something gives back to the animals. So this is about Tales for the Ages, not Tales, Tails. From time immemorial, humans and animals have shared a unique relationship, I would say. We learnt the age-old values of harmony, peace, friendship, honesty, and hard work from the creatures that lived around us. We've always shared a deep bond, that has flourished since ancient times. Animals have been a source of inspiration for humans in art, culture, language, and life. While humans have harnessed the wilderness for their benefit, they have also had the remarkable ability to marvel and be inspired by their natural surroundings. I would like to ask you two questions. Do think about it. Can new relationships be imagined between humans and these wild yet gentle creatures? Can we live in harmony for the benefit of our shared future? Well, like I said, our guest, Neha Meher, fits this bill perfectly on this special day of Dan Utsav. Let me bring Neha onto the screen and then I will give you a brief introduction about Neha. Hi, Neha. Welcome to
Hi.
Storytellers Cafe.
Namaste. Kia ora. Thank you for that awesome introduction.
Thank you, Neha. That was Namaste, hello in
And kia ora.
Maori.
That's in Maori, correct.
Right. So let me just introduce our guest tonight, Neha Meher, an accountant by profession turned teacher, animal lover, foster mother, Reiki practitioner, and mindful practitioner. Neha emigrated to New Zealand in the year 1992. Besides being a mother and a wife, Neha worked as an accountant and requalified as a professional. She completed her master's in corporate finance and worked in many roles that included accounting, auditing, finance for many years. Despite enjoying her work, there came a time when Neha recognized that she wanted something more, something that involved more human interaction. It was a time of Swadhyaya, introspection. All this introspection led Neha to one path to teach, but teach the preschoolers, the kindergarten children. Neha is so passionate about children and teaching, so she decided to combine the two. 12 years ago, Neha made that career change, gave up a lucrative career to pursue her dreams, and has since then never looked back. Besides teaching, Neha loves music, gardening, reading, and painting. Neha is an animal lover. She loves them passionately and has been running a foster program for cats and kittens for many years. So, Neha rescues kittens and prepares them to be rehoused. This includes vaccinating and spaying them. Neha is also a strong believer in embracing sustainability practices wherever possible. She is a beginner and exploring the immense possibilities in living and consuming mindfully. Observing and connecting with nature and the living environment has helped Neha immensely in finding that level of peace that we all need to cope with the day to day pace of life. And that comes when you absorb and live in nature. Neha practices meditation and ensures she sets 15 minutes at least every day to meditate. Like I said, a Reiki practitioner, and this helps her as and when needed. So, a healer also by profession. So, welcome, Neha, and we will uncover many more things about Neha as we progress in our talks today.
Thank you so much once again, Usha. At this present moment, I would really like to say a small pipiha, which is the way the Maori custom we introduce ourselves. So it's something similar to we have in our culture. We have the gotra to which we relate when when we have prayers or what all those we call the ancestors, and we do that puja towards the ancestors, and a part of that prayer is recalling our gotra. So over here, they talk about their lineage, which comes from mountains and the rivers, and iwi, which is their, tribe. And so it's very rich way of introducing oneself. So I would like to do a small part of that.
Please.
So is it okay? Cool.
Absolutely.
Ko Himalaya taku maunga. I'll explain later. Ko Ganga taku awa. Ko Singapore Airlines taku waka. Ko Bombay Scottish taku koru. Ko Ponraj taku matua. Ko Durga taku faya. Ko Neha taku ingoa. Tenakoto, tenakoto, tenakoto kato. So what this means is that where I come from, I relate to a Maunga, that's the mountains, that's the Himalayas. The Awa, the river I relate to, is the Ganga. Then the Waka is a canoe. So the Maori came as their tribes, the ancestors came on canoes to New Zealand. So we, of course, didn't come in a canoe. So we came here via Singapore Airlines. So we are allowed to say that's how we arrived to New Zealand. Then Koru is a school. So I'm from Bombay Scottish. And Matua is your dad, and Faya is your mom. So I'm acknowledging them in my Pipiha. And when I say Tenakoto, Tenakoto, Tenakoto Katua, which means greetings to you, greetings to you, greetings to all of you. So that's an introduction in Chirio Maori. So it's beautiful and so rich.
We never had, sorry, Akku, go on.
No, it's so rich too, it's like, yeah.
And so unique. We've had introduction in English, but not in the Maori tongue or that indigenous language. And that's beautiful. It's so
Thank
lovely
you.
that you introduced. And I want to
Yes.
tell the listeners that our guest tonight is Neha Meher from New Zealand, from the beautiful island continent of New Zealand. And she just introduced herself in a very unique way in the Maori tongue. And Neha, as you know, I mean, I know your family very well. Your sister is my best friend, and I too studied in Bombay Scottish, and I have been like one of those tongue tied younger sisters and looking up to you. And we would call you Akka. Aku.
Yeah,
Akka means
yeah,
big sister. So I
yeah.
know your parents well, and you come from a wonderful family. I've known both your parents
Thank
and
you.
your family. So it's good to have you here as my guest. And Neha, I know today you are going to touch upon or talk about your journey,
Yeah,
migrate to New Zealand,
yeah,
volunteer time with the NGO
yes,
that actually supports abused women,
yes,
and changing your career path and
yeah,
your health scare. Now,
yes,
very few people talk about their health, so that is something inspiring. Openly talking about, maybe in a closed personal story concerts when you have, you talk about, but not so openly. And to me, that is truly inspirational because from your sharing, a lot of people will learn. And and that is the idea, so that they share and they learn and they also enjoy your stories. So
thank you.
can we begin with your journey, Akku?
Sure. Before that, I'd just like to say a little bit about my childhood. Like you summed it up so well. We came from a very happy home and a very liberal thinking family. My mom is a Saraswat Brahmin and my dad is a Tamilian and I'm married to a Maharashtrian. म्हणून मी मराठी फार अगदी स्पष्ट बोलते. कोंकणी मग समो येता. Tamil konju konju varu. So it's a little bit difficult for me to speak in Tamil because I'm not connected that much with Tamil. And I think storytelling, because my parents came from two different states with two different languages, and my grandparents, both my grandparents lived with us. So I think they were lot of stories that they would tell us all the time. And uh, they were about the villages in which they grew up, their connection with nature, the cows they had, the calves they had. They remembered everything. They used to tell us all these stories, and we used to really long to listen to these stories. So we would sit with them and tell them, okay, Pati, you tell us, or Amma, you tell us the story today, And there were sometimes even ghost stories they would tell us. Also, the story that I liked the most was the Ramayan story, where they would talk about how they staged Ramayan in the villages, and people would come with props, and actors would all come in those bullock carts in the night. This is like we are going back more than 70 years ago. So they would come, in the bullock carts, and then they would put up this stage, and everybody would go. That would be like a night out, And they had those lanterns. Now we all talk about the circadian rhythm, but I think at that time when my grandparents lived, based on their stories and their narrations, I I can recall fondly that they lived so close to nature, so connected with nature all the time. So though the word circadian rhythm didn't exist then, uh, that's what they followed. Because my grandmother would often tell me if we ate late night, she said, "Look, you hear a bird chirping in the outside. Why are you eating at this hour? This is not the right hour to eat." So it was, life was full of so many stories. And I think the reason I find storytelling so important is because storytelling helps you to develop the skill to listen. And that's a very important skill. I think we've lost that skill today because we are so consumed by everything that's happening in our life. We have these deadlines. We have to meet someone at this time. We have to get up at this time to go to work. We have reports to churn out by this time. We have to do assessment by this time. So we are so consumed by all this that there is really no time to listen to each other. When do we stop and listen to the wind blowing? When do we stop and listen to somebody talking? Small, simple things. When we listen, it's always, oh, yeah, 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 yes, yes, okay, oh, really, okay. And then we pass out. We go away somewhere else. We have something to do. However, if we listen with all our senses and develop that skill, that is when we are really connected to the person and their soul when they're talking. And it's so important to make those connections. So I feel storytelling, especially me as a teacher and with young children, becomes a very important skill for them to, listen. Listening becomes a very important skill for them to develop. And that comes through storytelling, listening to each other. So I personally feel that is a very, very important skill to learn. And therefore, I think storytelling is so important. Yeah. I can't hear you, Usha. I can't hear you. You're
Sorry.
muted. Yeah.
I muted myself. I didn't want extraneous sounds.
Yeah.
Bang on. I certainly agree with you that storytelling is such an important, I wouldn't say a tool, it is, everything is storytelling.
Yeah,
Communication is
exactly.
storytelling. And, uh,
Yeah.
and that is why we are sitting in a storytellers cafe to talk more about this art form, this uh, how to craft the
Yeah.
skill to be a good teller so that people will listen. Not everyone will
Absolutely.
listen to something that you talk unless it is
Yeah,
good
absolutely.
content.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that is important. So Neha, can you carry on with your journey
Migration,
for
New Zealand. Okay. That's interesting. So we were living, I would have typically never ever left India. I was a wholehearted Indian at soul, and I still am. Uh, but what happened was at a time between 92 and 93, there were communal riots in Bombay. And that was a time when I saw Mahi burning. I was a part of it in the sense I couldn't find my dad. I didn't know where he was. We couldn't connect because phones were all put off, and we didn't have cell phones that time. So it was a very unnerving time. And that's when we my husband and I made this decision that we will definitely not want to raise our children in this place where there is so much of uncertainty, and we felt we felt scared, to be honest. So we decided then to migrate, and at that point in time, we didn't know where we wanted to go. So my dad, we discussed this with my family and my in-laws, and then my dad was in Delhi, and he happened to visit the New Zealand embassy, and he met Sir Edmund Hillary, and he told, so Hillary said to my father that, look, if the children are so qualified, why don't we are opening, New Zealand is opening borders, for migrants. So it'll be a point system and they'll easily get through. So why don't they consider New Zealand? And my father felt it was really a beautiful idea. That's actually the reason why he went to the New Zealand embassy. And he thought this is a beautiful country, very peaceful and quiet, and suits my children, my son in law and my daughter. So I think it'd be a good place to go. So that's how we migrated to New Zealand. Now I feel migrating to a new place is there are certain aspects about migrating that you have to cope with, and which are not normally discussed. People talk about how quickly you got a job or how easily you got a job, or the hassles of requalifying as a professional, because we do have to do bridging papers and become members of the institutes here. Uh, so people often talk about that, but there are emotional aspects of migrating which are really hard on you sometimes. And people don't talk about it. People perhaps want to be brave or perhaps don't connect with those emotions. But I'm sure these emotions are universal, but I can speak only for myself. And I would say that the feeling of sudden isolation, you come with this blinkers on, you feel like, this is going to be really cool and all. But no, you're isolated from your family, you're isolated from everything that represents you, your familiar sounds, familiar smells, So it takes time to assimilate. It takes time to accept it and to accept. So you're growing up in a different culture, and you are suddenly in another culture where the value system may be different. And your values are so deeply ingrained in you, not that your values are going to change, but you are going to embrace certain values that this society also offers you. So that is a challenge. And I think it's okay to feel that challenge, because the process of migrating, it is actually a process. It's not a destination. So you have to give yourself that time and be kind to yourself and allow that time, because the way I feel when I migrate may not be the same as someone else feels. So it's better not to judge. Once again, listen to what someone else is feeling, because that is what is helping them to heal subconsciously. And that is what is helping them to develop that sense of belonging. Same thing that you're striving to develop. And there is no time frame for that. It happens in a jiffy sometimes, it happens over a period of time, but you have to give yourself that time. I mean, today this is home to me. I can't think of, and India is home to me. So I have two homes. So I feel equally at home when I come home to visit, and I feel equally at home here. So I don't ache in either places. So that is what migrating is all about. But I think at this point in time, I would like to touch base with the most important thing that migrating to New Zealand offered me is learning about this beautiful Maori culture. It's so rich, it's so layered, and it's very deep. Uh, so there are a lot of similarities to our culture too, in the sense respect for elders, the respect to everything around you, the respect to our Papa Tuanuku, that's Mother Earth. the atuas, the many forms of atuas they have. Atua is God. So you have God of wind, you have God of forest, you have God of the sea. So just like we have like Ganesha, he's the atua to me of removing obstacles from your life. God of Durga Ma. So that is, she is the atua of, you know, uh, strength, empowering you, So similarly, they have these atuas, And then I said my Pepe heart, that's the connection with the ancestors. So all this is so deep. And I think one of the very amazing aspects of their approach to the human person's well-being is a holistic approach, which is called Haora. So that has four pillars. So you need emotional well-being, a spiritual well-being, a physical well-being, and a social well-being. And by social well-being, it's your whānau, your family. By whānau, what they mean is your immediate family and your extended family and your friends, those who have your well-being in their mind. So that is your haura, and you keep that, you look after it, you treasure it. And our children come to school, we always ask them, we have a Takurio page, which is their story, where they write about their manna they come with. Manna is something that you inherit from your ancestors. It's a power that lies within you. So for children, it could be they have a manna to sing or play outdoors or read, and these are their strengths that they come with. So that is really, I thought, was fascinating. Now, because we are in a Storytellers Cafe, I was wondering, they have also a lot of myths and legends. So if I could give a short, small, share a myth, mythology, story. Is that okay? Cool. I can't hear you, so
I was
yeah.
going to interrupt you, Neha, and ask you to share a story because you
Oh,
work
great.
with
That's
children, and I just
awesome.
thought I
Yeah.
will throw that. And you seem to
Thank
have read
you.
my mind. Go ahead,
Thank you.
please.
Thank you so much. So now, one of the stories involves Maui, which is he is a person with supernatural powers. And what I'm going to share is a story of Maui, um, how he slows down the sun. So, and I'm not going to read it because I don't have a book with me at the moment. So I'm just going to talk about it. Uh, Not like a story, but just what it involves. So, Maui is a person with supernatural powers, and he has four brothers. Now, in many, many, many years ago, the sun was rising very quickly and setting very quickly. So, what that meant is that people did not get enough time to follow their daily routines. So, they could not connect with other people, they could not fish, they could not grow their vegetables and whatever they were doing, cultivate their land. So, Maui decided to tame the sun. It was time, he thought, I must tame the sun. So he shared this idea with his brothers, his four brothers. Now, his brothers thought this was not a very good idea because the sun is so hot. And how can you tame a sun this hot? How can you go near it? So Maui said he can do it, and he just needed their help. And they all went along and they said, okay, we'll do it. So he goes and he cuts a few harakeke. Now, harakeke is New Zealand flax out of which you can weave baskets, and I've got some to show you later. So he decides, he says a karakia. A karakia is an invocation, it's a prayer to invocate guidance as well as help and kind of a thank you gesture. So that's a karakia, and he says a karakia for guidance and prayers, and then he cuts this harakeke, and they make ropes out of that. So they take these ropes and they go to the cave where the sun has set, and they wait for the sun to rise. Now, when the sun rises, what they do is he puts Maui and his brothers, throw the rope on the sun, just hold him still, hold him down. Excuse me. And then he tells the sun, "Why are you rising so fast and setting so quickly? So we need time to do our things." And when the sun doesn't listen, he takes the jawbone made out of his ancestors, which is magical, and he thumps it on the sun. And he reminds the sun that he needs to go slowly. So that's how, and the sun agrees eventually. And that's how we have our day and a night, and summer is longer, winter is shorter. Sorry, I need to take some water. So that's a story about Maui. So we do a lot of stories about Maui. There are different stories about how he looks after the forest, how he created birds, so many. Sorry. Yeah, so that's an interesting story, and children love it. Absolutely love it.
Lovely. I loved it. I loved it.
Thank
Beautiful
you.
story, Neha.
Thank
That
you.
is something
Thank you.
lovely. And I know that you are a wonderful storyteller, for those minute details. And it's a joy to have a guest who doesn't need a prompt to tell a story. You
Oh,
just organically blend into the story, and that's how stories happen. You don't prepare for them. Sometimes they just happen. This is lovely. This is your migration into this beautiful land with such diverse culture.
yeah,
And I can imagine the creation myths, the legends, and the epics of the they call them the citizens, or the first citizens in the United States. The indigenous are called
yeah.
the natives.
Natives. Yeah.
They are the people of the land. Land
Yes.
acknowledgement is done
Yeah.
nowadays before you begin a festival, especially in Canada and
Yeah.
some parts of the United States, because they
Yes.
were the original settlers, right?
Yes. Yes.
And we've
Yes.
taken over their land. So this
Yes.
land acknowledgement is a very huge part, especially I feel after the pandemic, because it's kind of set everyone thinking about the land, the earth, the mother earth that you live in, and what do you need to acknowledge and give back. This was beautiful, Neha. You also mentioned about your work with women, your
Yeah.
volunteering with
Yeah.
women.
Yeah. So I worked as a volunteer, as you said, with Women's an NGO, which took care and supported and helped um, abused women, to um, find their footing in society, so to say. Now, what I saw over there is abuse is prevalent in all stratas of society, all stratas of society. And abuse takes many forms. The physical form is what you see, but the mental form is something that is very well covered by the victims often. Um, like in our slums, for example, the poorest of the poor, when they have a fight, they have nothing to hide, because they don't have to put our new face up every day. They don't have to be who they are not. They are just who they are. So when there is abuse, she hits, he hits, it's over. Whereas in the upper stratas of society where abuse takes place, they are educated people. They are capable of, looking after each other. They have all those resources. However, abuse happens and it's all covered up. When they come out in the public, it's one face, behind the doors, it's another face. And then there is this in between strata, where people struggle a lot. They're neither poor nor rich. It's not exactly middle class, but they're poor, probably lower middle class, but they still want to hide, what is happening behind closed doors, mainly perhaps because the abuser is so powerful. And what happens in abuse is that you see these women they just lose their self-esteem. They just lose their, their connection with their own souls. And that's what the abuser wants, because he wants to control. All it is about control. They don't have finances at all. They don't get even a dollar to their credit. They have to ask for everything. So, and what breaks the cycle of abuse is when they run away from it. And often these victims normalize. They're made to believe they're ugly. They're made to believe they have no self esteem. They are made to believe that they have no self worth. So they're not worth anything at all. What will they do? They are not capable of getting a job, nothing. So, because that belief system has developed over a period of time, they just remain victims and they normalize everything. Now, what happens is that they might have a child, or they've taken so much beating that something snaps inside them and they decide to move away. And so they come into safe houses and all. And I step in at that time and I used to teach them personal finance, how to look after their own personal finances. Some of them, believe it or not, won't know how to even open a bank account. So they don't know anything about what is an interest. Where do I put the money? How much will I get? What is income tax? They need to be taught that. They need to learn how to budget. You know, so but along with that, because they are women who have suffered so much, they break down every now and then in the class. And you just have to once again listen, whatever they have to say, and listen with compassion, because all they want is someone to hear their story. And so what is to happen? But ultimately, uh, being around them for so many years, I worked almost 4 or 5 years with them. What happened, what I learned is that the power of hope is so strong. They, despite their emotional conditions, you know, they hope for a brighter future. And the human spirit, it's amazing. These women had built so much resilience and a can do attitude. They knew that they would not suffer anymore. They're out of that suffering. And so, whatever they get, whatever obstacles they get coming their way, they will overcome them. They had that confidence. So, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. And I took a lot, I taught them just finance, aspects of finance. But I think I learned so much more from them, and I wish them the very best wherever they are. So, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, Neha, teaching people to manage finance. I hope you're aware that there are books for children which talk about how to manage money, talking about money, money management, and what is saving. Because I remember a corporate coming to me and asking me to do this. It was a bank, of course, wanted to address how can children be taught to save money? How can they be taught to handle? What would they understand about saving? So it was wonderful, because once you get such opportunities, then you start doing research on stories. And there are some wonderful stories, animals.
Okay.
These are animals who teach you. So here the author has taken the liberty of using animals as protagonists.
Oh,
And
wow.
talking about,
Awesome.
it's really awesome, because I'm kind of leading to the next topic, which is also your love for animals. Your
Yes, absolutely.
abiding. I think it's a long abiding. It's not something that is just something which is new, having moved to New Zealand. I know that
No, no.
your family was an animal lover right from the beginning,
Yes, yes, yes.
and I have recently become a dog lover. So that's what, for me, animals were there. I was generally had no feelings, either love or hatred towards animals. But now I have abundance of love. And that is because a beautiful animal has come into my life. I don't even consider her to be an animal. She is truly a spirit, which is more than humans. It's a God spirit. So I can understand, how did this love for animals, how was it inculcated in you in your family? Because probably it had to be from your parents,
Parents,
grandparents.
yes, yes. I think my mom always was inclined towards helping animals, always. And my dad, too, in his own quiet way, he always helped. So we had, like, once I remember a donkey whose legs were tied up and he could barely cross the road. And he used to, we had that red gate for our house. He used to come there. Mummy used to come out sharp 4 o'clock. I don't know where he walked from, but he used to cross that road and come along. And we wanted to cut that rope. So my mom, she started feeding it carrots. And she used to tell him, don't bite Amma, don't bite Amma. And one day, just developing that relationship and trust with him, she managed to cut that rope. And he was free. And after that, he never came. So, it was those kind of things that happened, like stray dogs we would feed, stray cats, we had so many that we would feed. Then, because we were so passionate about animals, we could have bunny rabbits, chooks, and it was a fairly large house, so we could have all these animals with the outdoors. So, I think that's where my sister and I, and my brother too, we all developed this passion for animals. And my sister is also, as you know, very deeply involved with animals in Bombay. So when I came here, I, after settling in, I wanted to do some work with animals. So I adopted a cat first. I didn't know about this kind of TRP groups, which is trap, neuter, TNR, sorry, neuter and release, TNR groups. Then I managed to connect with one, and through my work actually, because he was the one who ran that group, and I used to bring stray kittens home. And then what happens is when they come in, they don't know anything about a human, because their experiences or their mother's experiences would be rather poor and not really something to go by. So they don't trust you. They are obviously hissing at you. They don't come anywhere near you. They don't want anything to do with you. And sorry, they have been separated from their mom, because we trap them only when they're 2 months and above. Nothing less than that, 2.5 months. When the blue of the eye becomes darker, that's when you know that they are, older and ready to be uh, separated, because the mother will start the process of weaning anyway. So we got them home, and then we slowly they learned to. My husband too is very very involved, and my children were when they were at home. So they climb your on top of your leg and they try touching, sitting on your lap, but they don't want you to touch them. Then slowly they are ready to be touched. Then slowly they are willing to take treats from your hand. Then slowly, little by little, they don't mind the television sound because we have to prepare them for everything. And I had my own four cats as a brood. So uh, they were slowly introduced to those cats. So you sort of get them ready to live in a family, you know, involve, get them, if they're a guest, you bring them and introduce, let them handle them, that's perfectly all right. Sorry. So this is what we did, and we did it on a regular basis. And it was very, very rewarding. It was so rewarding. And I think I will never look back, like it's the best thing I have ever done is giving them homes. And when it comes to wild animals, also, I feel we are encroaching on their habitats. We don't think. We just go. If you ever watch a movie, a real movie where an orangutan baby or a chimpanzee baby or any of these monkey babies are being taken away from their mom, the way the alpha male fights, the mother fights, their whole whānau fights for that one baby, protecting it, and they have to actually kill all of them to get that baby. And chimpanzees are not meant to live in labs. They are not meant to live in these in zoos. So I think It is absolutely cruel. It's nice to have a photographer going to the wild and filming them, and we can learn a lot about them. Why do we need them caged, where their whole behavior is changed? So, why do we need to do experiments on them? Why do we need to buy beauty products which are tested on animals? Because we don't need that really. So, there are certain shampoos which are like the rabbits are trapped in cages, trapped actually, so that they can't move their heads. And shampoos are poured over so that to see how much the eyes blister. Now, this is a cruel experiment. Do we really need to do that? Why can't we have volunteers for it? So it is rather depressing and disturbing to think how far the human race has gone. You know, where is compassion going today? So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Aku, I sorry, just wanted to add here that it is excruciatingly painful to listen to this, and if you are aware, one of the books, the first book that I published recently last year was about animal advocacy, and the
oh,
refrain is with yeah,
wonderful,
which came working with an animal organization, and their motto was, "If it ain't good for you, it ain't good for the animals too."
absolutely
It's a very simple line, but we
true.
need to ponder, think about
Yeah,
it, and then
we really need
assimilate,
to.
and then
Yeah,
practice. So I completely agree. Voiceless, caged animals who have no choice, and we have a choice, and we can do something about it.
exactly, exactly. And they're sentient beings. We don't have to take a male calf away from the mother. You know how much agony she goes through? We don't have to really do that because that calf is not going to give me any milk, and I can artificially inseminate the cows. So, that's what the dairy industry is coming to. So I feel that we have to have some some level of compassion, you know, and no talk of mine goes without talking about animals and developing that compassion. So it's so important. Yeah. As you summed it up,
Yeah,
I would
I
love to
agree.
be there.
Yeah, there is a NGO in Bangalore, which is Compassion Unlimited, which works with animals, and that is
Okay.
the first time I heard about this little dog. I think Itapa, who used to run around with the sandalwood smuggler, and then was used as a material witness in one of the veterinary
Wow.
hospitals. And then some NGO read about this, and they adopted Itapa, and then took them to their, I think, Cupa, Compassion Unlimited. I don't recall, but I remember that. I have it written down somewhere. And it's wonderful that there are humans who care and love for nature, animals, birds, and would do anything to protect them. And more power to them. And more power to you, Aku. Neha,
Thank you.
sorry. I tend to call you, and Aku is your short
Name
name,
at home,
which
short name at home.
yes, yes. But tell me, Neha, this fostering, because is it something that you need to get trained? Because I know foster mothers with children, but foster
Yeah.
care with animals is equally, if not more important.
Yes. You don't really, if you've been around animals sufficiently, then you do talk about them, like they tell you what to do, or they ask you what you will be doing. So there's not really, because I had been around animals so much, perhaps, I wasn't really, they didn't tell us to train at all. They just come home and make sure that the surroundings are conducive to their living. They make sure that you don't leave windows open. Obviously, you can't have a kitten running out. So they make sure that they have independent places and a place to hide if they need to. So, and they have enough food to eat, and it's for you to be alert and vigilant that they don't fall sick. And if they do, you're recognizing the signs and take them to the vet. So you are you are looking after them like a baby, you know. So that's what it is. And you have to be willing to keep them as long as they get a home, you know. So I had my first four, I think one I bought, but the others were all rescue kittens from my lot of, you know, some you get very attached to because they have a special need in terms of they are very shy and they're quiet and withdrawn. So I just didn't want to part with them, you know. And my next lot over here to four of them. So I just anyone who is in need of help, my home is open, you know. So it's something I like to. I don't think I'll be able to say no. It's not possible.
Lovely, lovely. What a kind, compassionate heart you have, Neha. I know it is a wrench also sometimes when you get attached and to be parted from the animals that you foster. But
Yeah.
if they have a good home, loving parents, then why
Yeah.
not? You know, they
Right.
need that.
Exactly.
Neha, what about your change in career? You were in a very successful, lucrative career of finance, and
Yes.
how did
Yes.
you, or what made you uh, steer away from it and forge a new path, teaching?
Okay. Um, what happened was I did well. I enjoyed what I was doing. I loved number crunching and all the rest of it that went with it, including working on Saturdays, sometimes holidays, you know, long days. Like even if it's 8 hour work, we never finish work in 8 hours. We always work for 10 hours on an average. So, and the responsible roles and everything that went with it. Uh, but along the way, I thought, um, I think it was, I'm a people person and I love connecting with people. And I think people normally tend to share their stories with me, share what's happening in their life with me, confide in me. So I thought, oh, there is this thing that is coming through. Every now and then I have to listen to someone's story. And this number crunching is not really interesting me anymore. And so it was great fun up to a point in time, but I knew that at that point in time onwards, I didn't want it. I wanted something else. Now, the thing was, what would I do? And you're so conditioned in your brain that, look, I've studied all this, I've done all this, I should move away from here, you know, that'll go in waste. So I was kind of trapped in that. So what I did was I left my work, I resigned from the role, and decided to take time out and just think, introspect, think, keep thinking about what I want to do. And I jotted down certain things, and I knew top of it was I'm a nurturer. So nurturing comes very easily to me. So I thought, yes, and I love children, passionate about them. I love teaching because as an accountant, you know, when we had new ERP systems that came in, uh, running the reports and teaching people how to run the reports and interpret the numbers in them was a part of the things that I did. And that's when I realized I can teach. I can stand up and talk. And I love to teach. So I thought children and teaching, why not? You know, and I didn't share it with anybody except my immediate family because I knew the first thing that people would say is, oh my gosh, you're going to teach kindergarten children. You've studied such a lot. Why? You know? So I decided to talk with my husband, and he was so supportive. He said, do what you want, whatever it is that brings you joy, you know? My children, they said the same thing. And then there was a kindergarten close by in Auckland where I lived, and I asked them if I could volunteer a few hours there in a week, and they were willing to embrace me. So I went there, and from the time I stepped in and I connected with those children, it just felt like breathing. It was so natural and it was so organic. It just happened, and I loved it so much. Still, I wanted to give myself time. So I waited for about 4 or 5 months, continuing to work there. And then what I did was I applied. I decided to study as a qualified professional. I didn't want to come in and study as a step because you can't come in as an unqualified teacher. and support the qualified teachers, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional and be on par. So I went and studied, I think it was 10 or 12 papers, a postgrad diploma in 1 year. And then things just happened so quickly and organically because the place where I did my practicum was the same place where I volunteered my time. And then they referred me to another kindergarten. And there I worked for 30 hours a week and I wanted more hours, a 40-hour week. So that head teacher referred me to another kindergarten. So it just happened. And I became a kindergarten teacher. And I think, once again, I'm a learner, so I love to learn. And I think I learned so much from children. Children are like sponges, they absorb everything. And they look at the world with such wonder. They quickly forgive and forget. So it's like 1 minute they're angry with you, and the next minute they are not. So it's like, you're not my friend, you're my friend. Just switches. And they are like, they make just ordinary things so magical. So I just enjoyed being with children and teaching children, and I've never looked back. I gave up my membership of the institute, and I've never gone back, and I never will.
No, I think welcome to the world of children and teaching and
I think you're stuck. Can't hear you, Usha.
sorry about that.
Yeah,
There is a slight network issue from my end. So
okay,
we are
it's all
back
right.
again. Sorry about that. Neha,
No
I was
worries.
just wondering whether you would like to share a favorite story of yours that you like telling children, because the kindergartners they love to listen to the same story. Is there something that is dear to you before we move on to the finale, which is about health and how you can inspire today women around the world uh, in dealing with health issues?
I think one of the stories that the children love hearing and they tell, because I always encourage children to tell stories. So, is the three bears, Goldilocks and the three bears. So that's where you get a chance to modulate your voice, like, the daddy bear says, who sat in my chair, and the mama said, who sat in my chair, and the baby bear squeaks, in a squeaky voice, who was sitting in my chair and it's broken. So there is a lot of place to improvise, to tell the story, to express the story, and they love it. And then we have little wooden magnets and which we give them, and they come and tell you a story. Sometimes what I do is I offer them pictures, and pictures which they're probably familiar with or maybe not familiar with, but you give them a picture and the child looks at the picture, and then and a couple of pictures, and you tell them, oh, can you tell me a story about this? And surely they start once upon a time, and then there is a story, and then the end. They know when it's the end, they know when it's starting. So it's like they know how to construct that story. So they're able to communicate. It helps them to communicate, and it builds their imagination and their creativity. So yeah, and we of course tell them a lot of Maori stories, like Maui ones. A lot of those flow through. So we have, and then Matariki, we just had Matariki some time ago, which is the New Year for New Zealand, I mean for Maori people. So we celebrated Matariki, and yeah. So they know the stories around that, the 7 stars and the 9 stars they are now. So yeah. So
Lovely, lovely. One would love to listen to your stories, Neha. Stories really take you to that magical world of fantasy where everything stands still and you could just get lost in that world.
absolutely.
And we all need, even adults need it. I would say
Oh yeah,
adults need it more than children
absolutely.
today.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm at the moment reading, sorry, this is going off the children's thing, but I'm at the moment reading Finding Me by Viola Davis. Fascinating
Oh,
book.
yes. Yes.
It's about her life, and it's so
Amazing, amazing
inspiring,
book.
amazing
Yes.
book.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree with you. I follow her on Instagram and I know that
yeah,
she is, and I've just loved her acting as a person, really.
yeah.
Um, Neha, can we come to the last part of our session, which is the most important, I feel,
Yes,
about health?
yeah, sure.
You know,
So, yeah, sure. So 2 years ago, I mean, everything was all right. I was perfectly all right working and socializing and having fun in life. And I realized that I'm beginning to feel a lot of fatigue. you know that was my first symptom, just fatigue. So I thought, oh, this is a fatigue syndrome or something that I'd heard about. It was coming to a close of the year, so uh, Christmas time, and 23rd of December, I still remember the date very clearly. We closed for Christmas, and I was just so tired that I even could not make a cup of tea for myself. And I was wondering, this is just not me. I'm a person who is on my toes. I like to be in the garden. I like to keep moving around, going out, going for a walk, something, involved in nature, involved in doing things all the time. So I couldn't figure it out. And the GP clinic where I normally go to was closed because of Christmas. And so I waited till the clinic opened. And when I went to the clinic, I told them that, look, I'm not feeling well. These are my symptoms. My GP was there, and he had a look at me and he said, oh, you have to go to the hospital straight away. I said, why? Why should I be going to the hospital? And he said, your heart rate is really very, very high, abnormally high. So with this kind of a heart, yeah. And so we did a cardiogram in the clinic, and it wasn't a very happy picture. So he said, you go to the hospital. So I did. My husband was with me because I was so tired. I didn't want to drive to the clinic. So my husband was with me, went together. And I went to the hospital. And when I went into the hospital, I was admitted. And I had arrhythmia and a very high heart rate. And they were pumping medicines through the intravenous to me. But when the doctors there came to talk to me, they found that the case didn't present like the numbers, everything that was coming out was so looking, not a very good picture. Whereas I looked pretty happy. I was chirpy, I was talking, I was sitting up, I was responding. None of that they saw on the paper. They said, if that is on the paper, you should be panting. I didn't need oxygen. My oxygen levels were fine. So it was quite a very confusing picture. I still don't know what happened to me. But after echocardiogram, they found that this is a case of a cardiac failure, what they call is a cardiac failure. So my ejection fraction was low, and it has to be above a certain level. Mine was pretty low. So I was told that this is what happened. And I still remember the cardiologist's face when she came to tell me. She said, Neha, the news is not good. I said, I can see that. I said, from your face. So she said, I said, okay, tell me what's my time frame. So, uh, and I said, I'm ready to go if I have to, if that's what is going to be the outcome and that's what you're hesitating to tell me, please don't, because I'm fine. And she looked up at me and she said, uh, very fondly and very quietly, she said, you must have led your life really well to be able to say that. And I said, I have, you know. So then she said, no, no, medicines can change everything. And I said, okay. And they can give you a normal life. And I said, good. And then I had all the medicine. I stayed there for about 3-4 days. I knew that medicines was not going to be my only way of life. I was not going to be dependent on medicines alone. I truly believe in the power of the mind. I truly believe that you can overcome any obstacle that comes your way. And I also believe in a holistic approach. If lifestyle has caused me this, and I don't know, understand what the lifestyle was though, except probably I didn't exercise as much as I should. But I was not obese. I didn't have any other. That's why the doctors, when they were saying tick, 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 they had nothing to tick because I did not have all those symptoms, you know. I never had blood pressure. I never had any other kind of complications. I didn't have a heart attack because they can make out through a blood test whether you've had a heart attack in the past. There was no scarring of the heart tissues. So there was no signs at all. So to be in that position, you know. So when I decided not to be a victim, I had to kind of look and find ways out of this, a holistic way of living. And lifestyle is one of them. And so I looked at, uh, I read a lot of books. There are people on whole food, plant based diets who are cardiologists in the US. I couldn't consult them because you have to go physically and consult them once at least before doing online consultation. But I read their books, you know, like Neil Bernard, Dr. SLT. There are lots of doctors, you know. So, and I uh, moved into that kind of a lifestyle. So, a lot of greens, which helps the endothelial linings of the, you know, the cell linings. It helps, makes the heart stronger, uh, be calm, because this verdict didn't really depress me. I was, I think, at that time, only finding a holistic solution for it. I took 2 months away from work and went back to work, and they were really lovely to embrace me. So I think that was important for my mental well being because I wanted to be connected with my children. You know, I wanted to be around them. And so all these things put together, I think you have to, there is a higher power, you know, and I'm pretty spiritual. But I think and believe that that higher power also lies within you know, so you can make a difference for your own self. You take charge of your life. You're the only one who brought it to this stage. You're the only one who can devote it back. So I think it is every obstacle that comes into your life makes you stronger and a better person, actually, if you allow that to happen. And I allowed that to happen. So 3 months after having this, when I went for my next cardiology checkup and I had an echocardiogram, they were stunned. My ejection fraction had come back to normal. My heart was normal. And they didn't expect that to happen. So I was told that it would come up to a certain level, but it won't be like that level. You know, so the ejection fraction is almost 50, 52 is considered normal. Mine went back to 61, which means that my heart was very normal. So I can do all the things that I used to do in the past. I have the stamina to do everything. Uh, there are certain things like I was not a weightlifter. I couldn't lift. Even as a small child, I could, you know, we were so skinny, you remember, like not too much of muscle mass, you know. So I don't worry about that because we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. And this is something I can't do. And I'm not training to be a weightlifter, so why should I bother about it? Uh, so I love all that I can do. I love having my normal life back. And I do go to a cardiologist who doesn't want me to come every 6 months. He wants me to come once a year. But I said, look, let me just come once a year, once in 6 months and see you. You know, it just helps me. So he said, okay, come on, come along. But I think next year he's going to change that. He doesn't want to see me. So, yeah. So I think it is, that's the most important message I have for anybody who's battling with any illness, that the power lies within you. You can change that equation. You can make a difference to your life. So I do it. Have a can-do attitude, and everything can be conquered. That's me.
That's phenomenal message, Neha, to all our listeners, that have a very positive outlook, the power of positive thinking, and
Yeah,
you can do, and you
yeah,
will overcome.
yeah.
Is the mantra.
Absolutely.
It is the
Yes,
mantra.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
this is fabulous, and we pray and that you have a wonderful health life ahead, which is healthy and full of uh, being in nature with animals. And also this is a combination of living with animals and loving nature, plant.
Absolutely.
It's everything
Absolutely.
together. The earth is
Absolutely.
healing everyone. And in the last 2 years, the earth has actually, there's been an upheaval in all our lives.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
we all do a little bit of Swadhyaya, it is going back to nature, going back to Mother
Absolutely.
Earth, going back to plants, going back to animals, and loving and sharing and giving.
Yeah.
And that is where I think the whole Dan Utsav week, or the joy of giving, actually comes from, because
Yeah.
Mahatma Gandhi was one who gave himself up for the nation. He was the father. And also, as you know, Neha, we are also celebrating Navratri. So it's also a beautiful message for all the people out there. And we have Neha's details. Neha doesn't believe in sharing her social handles, and we respect her. But if Neha is happy to share her email, those who
Yeah.
want to, we'll put it down and you can write to her, because
Yeah.
I truly feel she has inspired many in this show, because to come out and talk about your health is not everyone's cup of tea, and it takes a lot of courage. And I thank you for sharing that in this uh,
Thank you.
in this space. Makes me very happy. This is the first time on Storytellers Cafe that we've had people telling personal stories, but not such a personal story. So thank you, Neha, for that. And
Thank you.
it's been a pleasure to host you on Storytellers Cafe,
Thank
and
you.
something that I've been wanting to do. And I'm sure all the Scottishite, because I'm also a fellow Scottishite, and this should go out not only in all the Scottish groups and others, do share it with your friends and family, and
Absolutely.
all those who are listening and watching, that you can go back to Storytellers Cafe archives on YouTube as well as Facebook and watch this at a time that's convenient and share it with people, because stories are meant to be shared. And let's give the joy of sharing such stories which inspire us. So, Neha, any last words before we end the session?
Yes, I would like to quote Mahatma Gandhi's quote, if that's okay with you. The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. And I think there can be nothing better than that. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, Usha. Cheers.
Thank you, Neha.
Kia
Thank
ora.
you so
Kia ora.
beautifully. You have connected Mahatma Gandhi and animals, and I'm just loving it. And friends, I'll see you. Have a wonderful Dashera. Wishing you all a happy Dashera. I will see you next month in a couple of weeks, same time, same place, with yet another storyteller. And we are getting a lot of storytellers from overseas, but maybe time to go back to a few Indian tellers from India and then go overseas. So till then, thank you. Good night. Have a great day. Shubhratri, and wishing you all a very happy Dashera and Diwali. It is the festival season this month.
Wish you all the same. Happy Dashera,
Thank you.
everybody. See ya.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye. I'll just have to
Bye
play
bye.
the our Bharat
Yeah,
FM jingle and end this show. Yes.
sure.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.